Welcome everyone to another episode of our testimonial videos. And my name is Seewing from the Year Real Estate Network. And once again, we welcome Julie and Mark, and welcome back. We've been doing a lot of videos in the past couple of years, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to document your real estate journey. And so today we have several modules, several topics to talk about. And first of all, I'm going to I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to go through the two properties that you guys closed escrow just very recently. So if you don't mind, hopefully you can see the the slideshow clearly. Okay. So in each of these pro forma, just talk like 7 to 8 minutes. That's it, from a high level. And my projected numbers are documented right here. And we'll talk about both of the properties. The first one, I think the first one is 29
Columbia,
and the second one was 1951 Walnut or something.
Whitney.
So, anyway, okay. Anyway,
Although we do have one on Walnut too.
Yeah, so I want you to share this pro forma, if you will, this cash flow projection, which I did prior to you closing escrow. These numbers are just a approximate projection. They are not 100% correct. So briefly, I know this is your as we work together, and this is your fifth and sixth rental properties you have purchased out of state. So so from a high level, please go over. Okay, in fact, let me start with this property. This property, I'm not sure which one is it. Is it 29?
Oh, this is Columbia, 29 Columbia.
Columbia. Okay. So this property, a couple of months ago, you evaluated this property with Caleb Kanazi, and this property is priced at $68,500, and my projection was based on 7% mortgage rate, 30-year mortgage. You put 25% down payment on a regular financing, and then, so therefore your down payment is around $17,000 plus closing costs, a few more $1,000, somewhere around $20,000 total. This $68,500 single family rental property in Buffalo, Niagara Falls, New York, and the projected rent is $975 minus vacancy factor minus your monthly taxes $195, insurance, property management fee $96, and I even factor in the vacancy factor of typically around 2%, and also I even incorporated the maintenance percentage, any maintenance repair cost that you have to incur on every year, and I projected a 3% appreciation rate. So at the end of the day, you're able to leverage through this property financing. At the end of the day, you have a approximately monthly cash flow of $224, monthly net cash flow, and even with a relatively higher mortgage rate than we would want to pay, the bottom line is you still achieve cash flow. And if you look at, I'm not going to go over the numerical formulas on the upper right hand corner, but the upper right hand corner, the rent to cash value, rent to value ratio is very, is above the benchmark, the capitalization rate, and also above the industry real estate benchmark, and the total ROI, return on investments, the whole 9 yards. So the numbers to me looks good. So this projection is based on the first year projection. We don't know the second, third to 10th year and beyond, but suffice to say, things should look pretty progressively good down the road. So with that in mind, can you, from a high level, you or Mark, kind of briefly go over, why you buy this property, how did you decide ultimately to buy the property, based on the yield, based on the return, and then what was your experience, what the rental situation is going to be, and the rehab situation, and the inspection report. From a high level, spend about 5 or 7 minutes to go over this property. Then we can go over the second property that you just.
Oh, sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll start. I'll kind of look at the numbers, like you have the pro forma in front of us. And basically, when I look at a property, I look for three main numbers. I already know what my goals are. I already know how much I can afford to spend on each property. So I first look at the price, which in this case was 68,500. That was within my range for a single family home. I usually like to get somewhere in between 50 to 70, not more than 75,000 on a single family for myself and what we're looking to do. So this one fell right in with what our goal was. Then I look at, as he said, we put down 25%, estimate the closing costs, and cash invested the 23,125. Then that's got to line up with the amount of cash that we have for a down payment, which in this case it did. So that was the second line that I look at. The third line, which is on the right side, as I'm looking at it, and it says cash flow of $224.40. So as long as that number is in a plus, that makes me a happy camper. So those are like the first three things I look at. I like to get $224, even with a 7% interest rate, which I mean it's not incredibly high. It's higher than obviously what the interest rates have been for the last several months or couple of years. But to be able to get that cash flow, and when I reference cash flow, basically meaning all of our expenses are covered, the management fee, the mortgage, whatever, like Seewing estimated out what the management fee was, the vacancy rate, even the maintenance percentage, things like that. After all that, we're still getting cash flow of $224. So that works for me. That works for me. So that was one of the reasons why I began to look at this property. Then, once I decide, okay, this is something that I want to investigate, then I will contact the Turnkey representative, which in this case is Caleb Kanazi, through Buffalo Turnkey Properties. And then I'll begin to ask him questions about the condition of the property. Is there someone in it? How long have they been in it? Have they been paying their rent on time? In this case, this property, actually both the properties were vacant, which I'm kind of liking that, because then we get the tenant nice and fresh, and, then that's our tenant. So I'll just ask him several questions, and basic questions: condition of the roof, any major problems, how old is the electric, the furnace, the water, those things that can go wrong. And, if it sounds like it's a go, then we'll go, and then we'll work it out. And my husband and I, like I said, we've done this now. This is our fifth and sixth property. So one thing I realized, it gets easier and easier each time you do it. Yeah. I will say on all the properties, this is the one I have the least amount of notes on, because I always keep a conversation log. I probably have the least amount of notes on. My notebook is probably thinner because I'm saving less paperwork. I always put everything in a binder. And it's like once you do the first couple, the second, third, fourth, 20th, whatever, it gets to be much easier because the system, the people. We're working with the same set of people each time. In this case, in upstate New York, with Buffalo Turnkey, and it works really well, And then whatever little repairs that were required, they've been very consistent in getting those fixed before we close the escrow, and it just works for us. Yeah. Okay. And then Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me follow up our question. Then you were able to get a loan through my Wells Fargo loan agent,
Correct.
Ian Dornfeld. Just so you know, you people out there out in the YouTube world and watching this video, it's very, very rare to have a lender who is willing to finance such a low purchase price property. Most lenders, they're not willing to do a small loan like this, but because you're part of our network and all the system that I put in place over the years, I'm able to have a network loan agent from Wells Fargo, Ian Dornfeld, that he's willing to do a small loan. So, if you buy this kind of property anywhere else in the country, you will be hard pressed to find a lender that's willing to finance this kind of loan. So that's part of the power of leverage. Then you go to the appraisal. I assume the lender was able to appraise the property according to the initial list price. I assume that went well, and then after that, you have to do the inspection report. You pay for the inspection, and then after that you close escrow. So walk me through briefly going through the appraisal, going through the lending, then going through the
Mm-hmm.
report and the ultimate closing, and the
Right.
how the property management get the renter in. That would be the final piece of the closing process. Walk us through about the whole scenario.
Right. Well, as far as for the appraisal, again, the reason that you get an appraisal, if you've never bought a house before, you want it, the lender is the one that requires the appraisal when they're going to loan money out, because they want to make sure that what we are paying for the property is what the property is worth. So, if we're paying $70,000 for a property and it only appraises at 60,000, most likely they're not going to lend on it. So in our case, both of them came right in line. I think one of them, I forget which one, came in about, I don't know, $5,000 or $6,000 over what we were paying for it. So that's always nice to walk into a property with built-in equity. But so those things appraise, and then we go ahead and move forward with the inspection. That's a critical piece too, because we are in California. These properties are in New York. I'm not flying out every 2 weeks to see how they look or how the progress is. In fact, I've never been to New York, so I've never seen any of these properties face to face. But the inspection is our eyes and ears. He goes in, the inspector rather. He goes in and he will look at everything from top to bottom. Everything. He takes photos of everything, and I think that's where I really rely on my husband to go over the inspection reports with me, and he may want to share a little bit more about that because he's a safety inspector. That's what he does. He's a construction safety inspector, so it's very important to him. He can see things with a more critical eye, honey. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Mark.
Yeah. I mean, you're hitting it pretty good. I like the guy that does inspections. What is his name? Mike?
Oh, Chris McDonald.
Chris, I'm sorry. Yeah, Chris McDonald. Chris does a really fantastic job, and he's very thorough. So we really like that about him, and then also beyond that, Caleb, he's been really, really good with us about fixing all the things that Chris McDonald finds, with his findings, and so we like that a lot as well. But no, you're doing a great job talking about it. So please carry on.
Yeah. These kind of properties in the Buffalo Turnkey, they they're very, very old properties. Sometimes they're like 70 to 100 years old, but they over the years, this kind of property has been rehabbed, updated, they've gone through a lot of different type of rehabs over the years.
Right.
So the actual inspection report, I mean, you have to finalize some minor items that need to be fixed. So can you say a little bit about that?
There were some, like I said, some minor things. I think the things that we focus on are like the safety things. If there's an electrical problem, if there's a plumbing problem or things like that. One thing we did ask, they had an older water heater in one of them, and we did ask Caleb to replace it, and he did. And that was really nice. So he didn't charge us any extra for that or whatever. Safety things, if there's leaking water or whatever, those are some of the kind of things that we wanted. Even there were actually a couple of small trees that were pushing up against one of the properties, and Mark had asked them to remove those, and they did. So that was nice, so that that way it won't create a long-term problem. So they've been very accommodating for us, pretty much in anything. And like I said, some stuff is minor. Every once in a while we'll have like a cracked window or something. They'll be more than happy to replace it. Handrails, they get older, they, are falling apart, shaky, so they'll replace those, with stairs and things like that. So I can't think of anything else major, actually, with these properties. They were pretty minor.
Okay, after the inspection report, then you are about to close escrow. Then how did their in-house property management, how they gone through the process of getting the tenant for this property?
Oh, this is great. So one of them, is it Whitney or Columbia? Columbia already had a tenant. They were able to find it during the escrow process. They were able to find a tenant and put them in there. So we do have one of them. Before we actually closed, we had one tenant in there. And then they were following up the following Sunday to do an open house for the second property. So I haven't talked to him yet, but because since we just closed these on Friday, I think. It was Friday the 13th. So good luck day for us. So yeah, so we keep in touch with him, and they're very forthcoming in getting that process done. I mean, from what I understand, there is such a high need for rental property. Anytime they put an ad out there or whatever that they're renting, they get tons of people wanting to. So it's nice. I mean, they get more applications that they can handle. They can go through and really kind of get the cream of the crop so that they are making sure to the best of their ability that they're getting a tenant that's going to pay the rent. Because when you're a landlord or when you're an investor, all you're concerned about is are they going to pay they're going to take care of the place. So it does give them that option to be able to do that and go through and get the best of the best.
Yeah, so that's very, very good to hear. Yeah. So yeah, there was so it seems like a seamless experience and transaction for you guys. That everything went according to plan, huh?
It really did. It really did. I mean, like I said, I think I spent less time focusing on this. Once I get the inspection report back and we really kind of get through those, I don't really worry about too much else because we worked with the same lender, the same rep, Ian Dornfield at Wells Fargo, and his team is very efficient. You know, everything is done through the computer. And then the only thing we have to actually manually do is when the loan documents come, we have to take them to a notary, you know, to have them signed in front of a notary. But everything else runs through the computer, so it runs very, very smoothly.
Yeah, then you did the did the closing with the closing attorney that they refer to you, right?
Well, actually, we use our own. Yeah, because again, we're here in California. Now, you can go to a Wells Fargo, any Wells Fargo, and they will notarize the documents and have them done. We've actually never used Wells to do it because you always have to make an appointment and they are always busy, which is not a bad thing, I guess, if they're busy. But we have our own attorney here that did our living trust. So we've used her. And then for those of you guys that don't know, UPS always has a notary on staff. So this last time we used UPS to go ahead and do those. So it's nice. You know, we just go through, and I would say we've gone through the documents several times. They all read the same. The property value changes and the mortgage amount changes, but everything else reads pretty much the same. So we've gotten pretty good at getting through them pretty quickly.
Okay, very good, very good. Then at the same time, you did two closing at the same time, so which is very, very courageous and very ambitious. I mean, most people having trouble just to do one rental property closing. You did two. You bought two at the same time. So this second property you bought almost similar in price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, you know, it's so funny. He and I, we were able to actually negotiate that down a little bit. So it went from 73.5. He gave it to us for 67.5. So it was very similar to the other one. I think the other one was 68.5. So the numbers again are going to look very similar, even if it's 73.5, which you have on your pro forma. The numbers read very much the same. And again, I'm looking at, as I said earlier, the price. You know, how much I'm paying for it, how much initial cash, which is very similar to the other one. Again, at 7% interest rate, and then the cash flow on this one was showing 255. So those are the three numbers I look at. Once I get that, then I'll go forward and I'll start contacting Caleb for more information.
Yeah. So anything new on the second property in terms of appraisal, inspection report, getting the tenant in and closing and all that? Anything different?
Everything, like I said, went exactly the same as the other one. It was so interesting too that they were so closely in price, because I think the hardest thing was making sure I was like signing the documents for the right one, because the price, the down payment, pretty much everything was exactly the same. So, but no, I mean, like I said, Wells Fargo does a very good job of keeping track of it. And if once you're in their system, you can see which property you're working with, because it'll tell you if it's the Whitney property or the Columbia property. So it's very easy to follow through. And like I said, once you've done it a few times, it's just like anything else. You know, your learning curve improves and you can kind of move through it quickly. So yeah, both of them are really both the same.
Yeah, yes, good to hear. So this is a one-stop shop. They have all the network, all the people, on a systematic basis, help you every step of the way. So it's a seamless transaction. You did it remotely, you did it passively, and now you guys you just closed these two escrow a few days ago, actually. So this is your fifth and sixth property. I mean, you have in a span of a little bit less than 2 years, you have before that, you never had any kind of real estate investing experience prior to 2 years ago. Now,
Yeah.
you guys are the proud owner of a very large real estate portfolio consisting of 6 rental property. Some of them are single family homes, some of them are duplexes in the Buffalo Niagara Falls area. So I really congratulate you on that. You guys are,
Thank you.
yeah, amazing action plan and a lot of courage, a lot of commitment.